In your papers at page 15, I will move that the minutes of the Culture and Sport Committee meeting of 25 September 2024, Part 1 public, be confirmed as a true and correct. Seconded by Councillor Meehan. Any matters of correction or clarification? Being none, we'll invite a vote. Thank you. We're looking for the magic number 12. Debbie has dropped. Yes, 10 votes in favour, 2 abstentions. That makes 12 by maths. Well done, everybody. Next item on the agenda, Sport Manawatu Charitable Trust Annual Report to Palmerston North City Council for 1st July 2023 to 30th of June 2024. So the year that finished some months ago. I will invite the Sport Manawatu team down. Kelly Shanks, CE, in charge there. Kelly, I'll ask you to introduce everybody to the room and hand over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Morena, ko Kelly Shanks toko ingo hotu kia matatoa.
Morena koutou, ko Kylie Turu Whenua Tapsell toko ingoa, General Manager at Sport Manawatu.
Morena all, I'm Carl Johnston, General Manager at Sport Manawatu.
Over to you, team.
Okay. Well, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the mean they have left now, but still, the canoe polo champs, that was fantastic. And I think a fantastic example of success in sport, but also highlights many of the challenges that there are in sport, especially in the volunteering and financial side of it. So I just want to acknowledge that. I'd also like to acknowledge the Sport Manawatu Kaimahi for their amazing work that you see in this report, and acknowledge the council staff for all their support and partnership approach that is always continued and fantastic. And thank you for your continued support. As you can see from the 12-month report, your investment makes a huge impact in the community, and it's been a massive year. Your investment has removed barriers to increase access, creating more opportunities for the community to be active, particularly for those facing significant disadvantages. I'd like to thank and acknowledge those elected members in particular who come along to events of significance, to community sporting events, the Legends of Sport, thank you. And of course, those who are themselves active in their own way, whether walking, gardening, out there on your bike, coaching, volunteering, or being a positive sideline supporter, which is very important as well. Thanks to the support and partnership approach with Council to the LTP process, the sport and recreation sector felt heard, included, and found a voice collectively and individually to bring submissions to Council. While not everything was of course funded, which we understand, the sport and rec community have asked us to pass on their thanks to elected members for this great process. Recently published research from a social return on investment study found that for every dollar spent, there is a dollar social return of $2.12 to New Zealand. So this means that for every dollar invested in play, recreation and sport, the social return is more than double. So your council investment into this sector ensures happier, healthier, better connected and stronger communities, and we are grateful. So although this wasn't in the last financial year, we would like to acknowledge and thank PNCC and Rangatani for helping us transition into a new whare, which we love. It's brought many opportunities, and we'll update that in the next report. Like you, we want to do everything, and we want to support the community in every way we can. However, with finite resources, we just can't do everything. So the biggest drop-off in sport and physical activity is in rangatahi, particularly with girls. Our priority focus has been on tamariki and rangatahi to build their love of being active and keep them active, creating a generational shift in the health and well-being of Palmerston North. Active NZ data shows that our focus on populations, including rangatahi and tamariki, are engaging in physical activities at rates above the national average. So where we have concentrated our focus and efforts, it is making a positive difference. What is interesting is the individual workouts for rangatahi, which is well above the national average here in Palmerston North. So I don't know if anybody is a member of City Fitness Gym. I am. You can't get in there because it's full of teenagers. Which is great. Yep. A couple of key achievements. I don't want to go through them all because I'll take the report as read. But in regards to leadership, running diversity, equity and inclusion workshops across the sector, resulting in policy enhancements and building understanding by sporting codes on how to be more inclusive. With our partnerships continue with iwi, we've increased the number of codes we are working with and supporting, targeted schools, community organisations and collectives such as Ora Connect. We have many community stories, some of which, such as the Period Poverty Project, intergenerational play initiatives, such as collaborations with retirement villages and schools, and of course the Bike Ready video, which I hope you've seen. If not, please watch it. We've developed a new statement of strategic intent, and we've worked with the board, staff, key partners, iwi, and the community to develop this, make it more simple. Our simplified vision of everyone active, it's acknowledging that everybody wants to be active in their own way, and we want to support this. Further development and clear commitment to Te Treaty, I would like to acknowledge and thank Dr. Jeremy Habita and the Iwi Māori Partnership Board for their guidance and support with this mahi. Strategies, well, what does that really mean? It means three things for us in the pillars we have, which is about building capability across the play, recreation, and sporting sector and in our community. It's about strong advocacy for our sector, providing relevant and reliable data and insights, listening to the community, designing initiatives that are co-designed and are community-led, for the community, by the community. Increasing equitable access to play, recreation, and sport opportunities through quality opportunities so everyone has the opportunity to be active. Sports Event Partnership Fund. $11 million in value added to the city and 19,000 visitors. In a competitive environment, retaining this largest secondary school and national events in the country for 3 years has been exciting. So that includes volleyball, badminton and basketball. And if you have not been along to these events, I strongly encourage you to do so. They are fantastic. So far this year, we have already hosted exciting new events, such as the National Hockey Championships in Palmerston North, setting a new record of 48 teams participating over 8 days that they stayed here for. The National Gymnastics competition was also huge. We are known by Sport New Zealand and the Minister of Sport, who I met with, as the home of the largest national secondary school sports events in the country, and this is something that we should be really proud of. It is important to note that going forward, the costs of events have increased, and a strategic approach to event retention and attraction will continually be developed, as we will not be able to fund as many events going forward. Active transport. We received a beautiful letter from Riverdale School. We actually get lots of letters in regards to cycling skills in particular, which we will put in our next report. As you will see highlighted there, your biggest strength is identifying those children who need that extra support, and we certainly see the lift in confidence and skills in our most vulnerable. Oh, I'm quite chuffed I could read that from here. However, we are challenged by the number of children that need the extra support. Whānau are time poor, so we think that they should be able to teach the kids to ride, but that's not always what the case is. And some don't own bikes. So we have increased levels of complex health needs as well. So you'll see that 57% of all Year 5 and 6 students across Palmerston North have participated in Level 1 or Level 2 Bike Ready course. Although numbers are increasing, as you can see from our early graph, and we're still not able to meet the target set by council staff. This is due to multiple reasons, not only the complexity of the children's needs, but also the need to complete Level 1 before you can get Level 2. With a small resource, which we're very grateful for this programme, as well as the many complexities, weather, sickness, teacher illness. If kids don't pass Level 1, they can't pass Level 2. So we believe this is a great target to aspire to, but a difficult one to achieve. We are currently working with council staff to active transport and as well as the cycling skills for the next year's contract. There is no doubt, however, that the school values cycle skills programme and active transport. He Raki Tua. Leading the way, Palmerston North City Council was the first to endorse this in the region. Now, currently 6 out of the 7 councils across the region have endorsed the plan. Currently, we're working with Palmerston North City Council and Sport New Zealand to support the Canoe Polo Needs Assessment, assisting with Palmerston North Bowls Club with funding for the covering of a bowling green post the business case. What about the next 12 months that we're already in? Supporting Manawatu Gym Sports in their quest for a new facility, continuing to collaborate with Council's Play Advisor for the implementation of the play policy, We're gathering insights for the future of sport and recreation in Palmerston North with a 20-year outlook, so that we're future focused. Over the last 12 months, we've built our sporting leadership group. This now also includes swimming, parafed, rugby league, softball, touch, golf, lawn bowls, pickleball, bike Manawatu, gym sports, tennis, and council representation. We've also been distributing funding back into the community, so we've allocated over 658,000 through the Sports Event Partnership Fund Active Communities to Manawa and Heoranga-Potama. At this stage, all of this funding is secure for the 24-25 period. And the last slide. Sport Manawatu are working to support and contribute towards the government's new targets to be delivered by 2030. So the New Zealand Sport and Education Programme found that using sport as a context for learning and engagement in schools results in improved attendance rates, decreased behavioural incidents, higher retention rates, increased engagement levels, and tasks of assigning completion, and improved NCA results. There'll be more in the next report about this. Thank you.
Thank you. That was inspiring. I had some questions, and I'll open up the list for anybody wanting to join. First, in your stats, and you focused on the Rangatahi Tamariki end of it, but I noticed in there it said that our playground usage was below national average. Can you speak to that? What's going on there?
I can go back and have a look. I guess that is the stats that we've got in regards to what people have said, that how they've used the playgrounds. And we do have a higher proportion of playgrounds, so that could be interesting in regards to different reasons. But something I can definitely follow up on if you're interested.
Yeah, I think we would be interested in that, just to check that we're getting returns on our investment in playgrounds that we think we should, or whether that investment's in the right place. So we're really interested to hear from you on that one. I had a question which was it's probably just some weird wording that leapt out to me. This is in the officer's report, but I'm sure you can comment, and if you can't, Anne-Marie will leap up. Outcome 1, it just seemed a really weird wording to me, decreasing levels of physical inactivity in the city. It's hard to prove a negative. Why are we not reporting on increasing levels of physical activity?
Yes, it's a double negative, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. We can change that.
I think it would read better, but I think are we really, is that what we're trying to do? Decrease levels of inactivity? Is that your job?
Well, it is. It's increasing levels of activity, which is decreasing levels of inactivity.
Semantics, I suppose. Sorry. Events partnerships, we do, the Sports Partnership Fund, we do get, and it's great to see those stats coming through. We talked about this in some conversation in the chamber about the measurements that we use on economic impact. Are you able to work with council staff in future to move to their new economic impact modelling?
Yes, we can confirm that. We're working with Luke and Victor, who is our administrator of that fund. So yeah, there is that partnership going on.
Brilliant, thank you. And last one from me. You talked about the cycle outcomes not being quite where you'd like them to be. I think we're in red and amber on both of those. But that isn't part of your core fund. The Cycle Ready programme isn't part of your core funding, is it? That's an additional funded element. Just want to speak to the challenge of that funding space, what we get for that additional, I think it's $80,000.
I think there's sort of two parts to it really. Then the active transport space in general with our core funding, as well as the bike ready stuff.
I think we're just waving at the school children who are going out. Yeah.
Super cute.
See ya.
Super cute. So in the bike ready space, it is the achievement of the grade 1 and grade 2 cycle skills programs that go into that space. The additional stuff that sits around it is in some of the active transport, the plans that can be into the school spaces as well. So it primarily focuses in on that achievement of those cycle skill programs.
Great. Thank you, Kylie. Right. The Mayor has a question. Over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, team, for coming in. Couple of things. Those cycling stats, So I note on page 35 of our report, there's been an increase in delivery of 31%. What were the targets that staff set?
Sorry, what were the targets?
Yeah.
The targets so we've got the 800 at level 2. And then I guess that for us there is the level 1 that we have to do. That's not one of the targets. So yeah, altogether kind of around that 650, 649
Yeah.
for level 2, and 800 was the target.
800 was the target. Who set that total?
Council staff.
Okay. Okay. So, is that achievable? I mean, you've already got a 31% increase. Are we just, and this is probably to the officers as well, is it slightly unachievable? We invest a lot in bikes in schools. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think we're giving ourselves a bit of a kick when we shouldn't.
No, correct me if I'm wrong, Kylie, because she knows the stat better than I do, but my understanding to meet that target would be 75% of all children across the year. 67% of all children across the schools, year 5 and 6
Right.
in Palmerston North
Okay.
for 80,000.
All right, I'll come back to comments on that. I note that your events, the fund, the sports events fund, is more than just secondary schools, isn't it? It's all events, and I think there's a list there on page 54 of those. It's fully allocated, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I think we should be very excited and happy with the range of events. So there are two elements to that. There's obviously events of economic significance, but there is also community events as well in that, because we value both in regards to, the event side and the societal benefits that they bring.
So where are when you say community, are you saying sort of like regional events?
Like Ethkick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks. I'll leave it to comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, team. Love what you do. We recently had a leadership meeting up at Massey, and the university talked about having accommodation ready to go for large-scale events such as yours. And I know there's been a few hassles in the past with not enough and costs, etc. Have you been approached by the uni about this?
No.
No. Okay. Well, maybe you could touch base with them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Kelly and team, for all the good work. A couple questions. The Mayor, I think, got to the bottom of the numbers around students. Just wanted to understand a little bit, do we have information around kind of the distribution through the community of kind of which neighborhoods have schools that are getting that opportunity and which neighborhoods have schools that aren't getting that opportunity currently?
Yes, great question. We do have our full list. I can actually share that as a part of the report for the next one, which might be really helpful. It might actually be more helpful to do a couple of years at a time, because we do have some schools that want to do year 1, not year 2, so they'll do it on and off. So we've generally got, the key and large schools locked into that space, but I can share those as part of our next report so that you've got some visibility of it.
Great, thanks, Kylie. Just wanted to ask too around the adult side of that in terms of adults that are accessing that service, around getting their confidence back on riding their bike on the transport network. What kind of information do we collect at the end of that in terms of efficacy of the service that's offered?
That's been more of a recent development. So I think in the last report that we had to you guys, we were talking about that as our next step. So we've done a number of sessions. They're actually a lot more time intensive than some of our children's ones, and some really different, a very wide range of abilities in the riders. Have a 90-year-old that had never ridden before. So appropriate bikes, education time, those things, they're all quite different. We are looking to do a capture at the end of the sessions, some feedback on what that looks like, so 6 months down the track, whether they're still riding, what that looks like. So we'll have that to come through.
Great, thank you. And finally, in that vein, seems to me this isn't the first report that's kind of come in and described the Goal 3 stuff around active transport being kind of in transition, in development, still working on it. Are we approaching the end of that to where we're kind of in a stable situation where we're kind of building momentum?
Yeah, great point. It definitely, alongside, I guess, our discussions with council staff as well as our community and schools, is really at that point of firming up for the active transport space in general, and the expectations on the deliverables between that and the bike-ready space.
Can I just add to that? So one of the things that we will be doing this year that's locked in is in regards to active transport within schools, so walking cycling weeks, which we haven't previously done as well. So there's lots of different ways to get to school, so we want to support all different aspects.
Great, thank you. And finally, because the slide has been there for so long, I'm interested in those stats because a number of them refer to individuals and then you get to young families, and I'm trying to understand what's being measured. That is that what's being measured by young families?
The data in there is captured, that's straight from Sport New Zealand, so the definition of around that, I'm actually not 100% sure, but I think we can be clear on what that is. Yes.
Do we have information around, I guess people, I don't know what that might be, let's say 25 to 55. Do we have information about individuals of that age as distinct from only family units, or?
Yes, there is. There's demographic breakdown for all of the age groups, and then Sport New Zealand's gone into grouping them based on tamariki, which I think is 5 to 12, 12 to 18 for rangatahi, and then older young people is one of the 18 to 24, and then younger families. So demographics by age, but then also grouping them as key groups as well.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. There's a question online from Councillor Harpeter.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Thank you, Kelly and team. My question's on page 54 around your events that I just wanted to ask a question. How many of these events do you think that we'll get as repeated events going forward?
Yeah, so a number of those events are multi-year agreements with, it's been a focus within that Sports Partnership Event Fund, Sports Event Partnership Fund, sorry. So there's at least half of those ones on there are multi-year agreements that we've got.
With the New Zealand cycling one for Cycling New Zealand, is that one the one that was run with Steve Stannard, or is that a separate one?
That's a separate one.
Do we have any of the events that were run with Steve Stannard in here? I didn't see them.
There hasn't been.
The ones where he did gravel and tar, are they not in here?
They haven't applied through this fund.
Okay. Yeah, you only report on the events that you have the funding for.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leonie. Just to follow on that, is it a measure of success for you to keep events in the city? Is that what you're aiming to do in terms of these multi-year deals? Is that one of the things that's your aim in this fund?
Yeah, it gives the city security of events and not losing them to different cities or regions. So yeah, it is one of those things we are looking at to try and encourage.
I think one of the other things, when we have multi-year agreements and we know when they're coming, so when other events come, we can also make sure that there's no clashing, that we can speak to hoteliers, restaurants, the city in advance, so that we're really prepared so that people have a really great time when they come here. So that's definitely an advantage.
Thank you, Kelly. Councillor Zabellin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora koutou. I just had a question that's been sparked by Councillor Harpeter's, and on that same table on page 54, that lists the type of events that received some funding allocation. Just towards the bottom there's a Badminton Manawatu, and then there's the Cricket Association, and they just weren't linked to any specific event. And I was wondering, I think I was at the badminton one, so I do know that was a tournament, but I was wondering, were those tournaments, were they events? What type of offering was put on by the Central Stags Hinds.
I'm not sure.
Yes, they are events. I have to. The Central Stags is quite a big event that's advertised, which Mayor could probably talk a lot more to than I could. Is a big event, and the Manawatu Badminton is also. I'd have to go and look back as to what the name of that event is, but there's very strict criteria around what you have to apply to, so they are all major events that fit the criteria, if that helps.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no further questions. So if you'd like to withdraw to the gallery, we'll move to the recommendation on the screen, which is that the committee receive the Sport Manawatu Charitable Trust and report to PNCC for 1 July 2023 to 30 June 2024. Attachment 1. I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Meehan. Open for any comments members would like to make. I think for me what stood out, and maybe as Councillor Barrett said, it was because that screen was there for such a long time, it's that we get good outcomes where we put investment. So the investment that we give to Sport Manawatu focuses on specific activity for rangatahi and tamariki, and we're seeing good outcomes in that space. They don't focus their activity on those other demographic slices that were put there, all ages, older adults, young family, less of a focus, and we can see in the stats less good outcomes, in fact below the national average, I think, on every single one of those from that screen. So it shows the value of the investment that we put through Sport Manawatu. Just seeing that presented like that makes me come to the conclusion that if we didn't put investment into the activity levels of our younger people, we would also be seeing significantly worse outcomes than the national average. What we are doing seems to be making a difference based on the evidence presented through Sport Manawatu's report. So thank you, team, for bringing that to us today and for the breadth of work, recognising that your work is much wider than the things that Palmerston North City Council funds you for and the things you do for us. So it's quite hard to tease that out in the reporting. I do appreciate that, but it is always quite inspiring to see the range of work that you do and the outcomes that you're achieving in our community. So thank you. The Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to pass my congratulations on to Sport Manawatu as well, and I think the Chair summed it up really well in terms of if we didn't invest, possibly things wouldn't be as good as they are. Always room for improvement, so you've got to keep that in there. A couple of areas, like the focus and investment on children and youth, I think is really important because it is our future. Just on the cycling, I just have to question some of the targets there from staff. I mean, I just wonder if we're trying to do almost too much or we should stage it. So I'm just unsure how we get that advice given without any insight around this table. So would probably to the CE would need to understand how that gets to that stage, and it gives an unfair red mark because we've invested heavily in cycling. Out of 28 primary schools, we've got 15. Those around the table a bit longer can remember the Bikes in Schools program, where 13 schools have their own facilities, and look, there's been some great work going on in that space. So yeah, I think we can perhaps just have another discussion about some of those targets. Just on the Sports Events Fund, and it's funny how we're talking events today in other areas, what a success that's been. And again, if we didn't have that, would we get those events? I can tell you we wouldn't. Absolutely wouldn't. So for those that question some of the events, and just the councillors, Valen, the hockey, that is the largest domestic first class fixture in the country at Fitzherbert Park. So that was for the Central District's Hinds, our women's team, and the Central District Stags, our men's team, who I think played Auckland and won. So that was good. And we're supporting obviously our women's team, and I think that's really valuable because we've invested a lot in Fitzherbert Park. Just finally on the promotion of perhaps a title, and I think it was part of your opening, Kelly, was we are home, or we're New Zealand's home to secondary school sports events and tournaments. I think we should be starting to put that up in lights. It'll beat away the opposition. You know, I've just been at an event at Waipawa District Council, and my gosh, did they shove it down my throat that they brand themselves as the home of champions in rowing and in cycling. So I pushed back and just said, well, we're actually a little bit more than that. But so I do wonder if we should be doing a bit of that ourselves. It's not widely known, and I think sometimes our ratepayers question things with a slight bit of lack of understanding of what we do. So to invest basically $290,000 and get $11 million in return, I think is pretty good value in my book. And also there was a lot more competition around the multi-year deals. So the likes of basketball, volleyball, which I think is probably New Zealand's biggest event, touch and badminton is outstanding to have secured those in multi-year agreements. So well done to the team that negotiated that. But also we're strong in gymnastics, we're strong in hockey, we're strong in softball, and we're strong in netball. So, and I think it's a real credit actually, because there's quite a lot of diversity in those different sports as well. Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to invite a comment from the CE on those targets for cycling that we've set operationally.
Yeah, through the chair. I'm happy to take a look at that. I'm pretty sure the team will take a look at it. Most of the KPIs that are set to achieve the outcomes that we've got in our long-term plans and the like as well, but happy to go back and take a look at them.
Thank you, we appreciate that. Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I just want to thank Kelly and the team for a great job they do for our city. As the Mayor's touched on most points that I wanted to touch on, I won't ramble too much, but secondary school sports is our money maker, and it's something I totally agree with what the Mayor said. We need to chase that a bit more. We need to put that up in lights and make that happen. We heard today from water polo and what great achievement they did, you know. This all comes down to grassroots of sport and what we invest, what we put in, what we end up getting back, you know, and we need to follow that, chase that, and keep working on it. So once again, thanks Kelly, thanks team, brilliant.
Thank you, Councillor. Canoe polo, water polo is a different thing. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, firstly to thank Kelly, Kylie, Carl, and the whole team, and the thousands of volunteers out in the community that actually make these outcomes possible every year. I did want to pick up a little bit about the bike and walk readiness. Really pleased to see the diversification of scope there in terms of really explicitly engaging with and targeting and reporting back on adults as well as youth. 90 years old, I guess that's better late than never in terms of getting on a bike. But, you know, people at all stages in life find themselves at times wanting to diversify their choices around how they get around or what sort of recreation they use. So it's great to know that that's a lifelong offering, albeit with most of the focus there around students in schools. So to that point around students in schools, would accept that there's you know, always value in thinking about what the targets are and how fair they are. I think what we heard from Sport Mano too is that things have been in transition. They're still in a bit of transition, but they're in and moving to a position where things will be much more embedded and established and in a position of gaining momentum. And I think we should allow that to happen before we get too concerned about potentially resetting any targets, etc. But always happy to have that conversation, provided it is matched up with a conversation about resourcing. As Councillor Miensch just said, what you invest in is what you get back. So we need to keep that lens firmly around the space of ensuring that children have the basic skills to safely get on a bike and enjoy the joys and freedoms of life on two wheels in the city, and don't get into a situation where we end up having haves and have-nots. And if we're only at about half the schools, I'd say there's a bit of progress yet to be made. So I'd be all up for a conversation and look at what's happening in terms of targets, but also resourcing, so to make sure that that is a benefit that sits with the whole community and not just some of the community. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Barrett. We'll go to a comment online from Councillor Harpiter.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just want to also thank Kelly and her team for all the hard work that they've done at Sport Manawatu, but particularly around the sport event fund. I just think that's a fantastic fund, and you have administered it very, very well. And it's very good that what you've done for our community. So thank you for all that hard work in there. We do see the economic benefit in the city, and it's very good for the city. So thank you for all that. I just wanted to make one comment around Steve Stannard. He has also done a lot of work around events for the city. He actually left the city this week, and he's gone back to Australia. It's quite hard to say this, but he's gone back to die. So that's quite a hard thing to say, but that's where he's gone. We had a farewell for him this week, and he has left. But anyway, he's done a lot of hard work around this events and events for cycling. So I just wanted to commend him for his hard work he has done for cycling for the Manawatu. So thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me have a comment. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor Harper, and thank you for referencing the work of Steve Stannard in this respect. Very useful. Councillor Dennison. I quite like it when you stand. It makes me feel important.
Thank you. The first comment is just reflecting back on the canoe polo and actually reminding myself about the winningest weekend for New Zealand sport back in 1981. That there was the T20 final for the White Ferns, there was the Black Caps beating India, there was America's Cup, and the White Ferns beat. The Silver Ferns beat Australia. There's just like an enormous list of achievements, and so that is the pinnacle of our elite sport in New Zealand. It brings us a lot of pride. And so when you think of that, where does it all start from? Is this grassroots participation in these local competitions and the national tournaments, and so the Regional Sports Trust play a critical role in that space, and so really wanted to elevate that whole pathway to the podium, and the work that they do, and it's been well covered, the use that they make of that regional partnership sports fund, but just the enormous amount of work they do, and to bring them through a few stats, I think, is just pretty amazing, really. They're really pretty strong indicators there. The other point too is like when the reflection and celebrations, the sports awards and the secondary school sports awards, I saw the photos, I didn't attend, but every year we've got an enormous amount of young athletes coming through in the local high schools. It's pretty incredible for the range of sports equally that people are participating in. But the other thing too with the lifelong legends of sport, and I wanted to also acknowledge our council colleague who's pictured here on page 40 of our agenda here with his award. Yeah. The acknowledgement for you, our colleague, but also the legends of sport is pretty awesome, and that we do that recognition there. So lots happening in this space, and it's important. We take a lot of pride from it and community spirit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dennison. Absolutely, I think you've summed up the mood of the room really well there. We take enormous pride in the activity levels across the city, in the position of Palmerston North, in supporting that grassroots sport through our facilities, through our programmes, in order to enable people to be as active as they can be and to progress in their chosen sports as far as they're capable of going. So it's been a wonderful celebration of that whole range today, to go, what are the things that we're doing at that grassroots level, and how does that translate through to the top of New Zealand elite sport, and we can be proud of our contribution across all of that. So well done, everybody. Let's vote to receive that report. "13 votes in favour. Thank you all very much. Our next item on the agenda is the Heritage Reference Group Terms of Reference, and I will invite Keegan Aplin-Thane, Senior Planner, and Greg Vossler, Heritage Consultant, to come and present that report. Thank you. Over to you, Keegan.
Tēnā koutou. My name is Keegan Aplin-Thane, Senior Planner for
within the strategic planning unit. And with me, I have Greg Vossler, who's a former employee in the planning team from a wee while ago, and also a planning consultant for us, assisting us on a range of matters. Full disclosure, for the record, Greg and I did not swap socks, so we'll probably stick to our knitting and not do anything that overlaps with canoe polo TikTok trends. But we're presenting this terms of reference for a new reference group, the Heritage Reference Group. Needless to say, it's probably been a long time coming around the council table and well anticipated by the community and the heritage sector. Greg's experience and contacts throughout the sector nationally have been very valuable for creating quite an agile but meaningful process to get to this point. The key reasons for bringing this paper to you is to make sure that there's some sound direction or endorsement of the purpose statement in particular for a reference group like this. We've had many reports that have come up over the years around how the sector could be lent on a lot stronger, or various projects incorporating heritage outcomes. So this reference group would ideally be a key conduit and a channel for that. I'll just make note that a number of us in the heritage sector, or in my case heritage adjacent, had been to the Napier Heritage Community Conference earlier in the month, and that was a really good exercise for us to benchmark where our trajectory is looking with respect to the sector and supporting the sector relative to the political, social, financial conditions of other similar cities or larger cities, and with respect to not wanting to speak too out of turn, it doesn't look that favourable in a lot of other cities at the moment. When you're looking at various building and resource management reform, creating a lot of uncertainty in our larger cities, financial constraints hitting every council under the sun, and so having to make some really hard choices around how they direct funding, and even the political environment to support the formation of groups like this across chambers across the country. So we actually got some really good affirmation that we've got the right ingredients, particularly at this time. When you look across your colleagues around the table here, at least probably half of the group is involved in heritage groups in one way, shape or form. We have the right projects to leverage heritage outcomes. We've got a sector that's extremely well experienced and versed in research, which, as we've understood from the genesis of Napier's Art Deco history, those research pieces are the key catalyst or the skeleton key to unlock, I suppose, those outcomes at that city level. And we've managed to retain the support structures that we need funding and service-wise for the sector. So this group would help council officers and elected members pull all those ingredients together to make magic happen over the next 3 years. The key critical outputs of the group over the next 3 years would be support towards a more robust heritage plan, or a more full heritage plan, if you will, and also the resulting LTP programs that could come out of that. And there's been a lot of conversations with this working group that we pulled together to test some ideas to this statement around what that could lead to. So a lot in the sector are rearing to go. So without labouring it too much, I'll just give Greg the opportunity to make any comment before questions.
Yes, thank you, Keegan. Yeah, I concur with the comments that Keegan has made in relation to the establishment of this group, and I think the timing's probably right. This has been a long time coming, and it's good to sort of see an initiative like this rising to the fore. I suppose the proof will be in the pudding, as they say, and in terms of the composition of the group, and I suppose its ability to gel and to actually bring forward, sort of active things for the councillors to consider in relation to future projects, and also in that sort of in terms of input into the next iteration of the heritage strategy for the city. Thank you.
So
happy to take questions through the chair.
Do you need help there, Councillor Ward? You okay? Question from Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Keegan, and thanks, Greg. Heritage adjacent, I like that. That's quite a good term. Just had a question in the actual terms of reference on page 83, I think it is, where the Heritage Reference Group is introduced and indicates the two main types of heritage around what's called a tangible heritage and what's called an intangible heritage. And within the tangible side of that, there is mention of landscapes. And I guess where that takes me is trying to understand, does this group bridge across what I would label kind of natural and built heritage, or is it more of a built and kind of human heritage side, and is it less of a natural heritage side based on the definitions and information in the terms of reference?
A lot of conversation, sorry, through the chair, a lot of conversation been had with this Heritage Working Group around specifically the need to have a form of a definition of heritage to pin to, and that's where this has been developed from. With respect to, say, the balance of natural versus built heritage, we would expect that it would cover both. A lot of our funding and support covers both. A lot of our storytelling, as you've seen across the city, particularly close to the river, covers both. Our capital programs are often in locations where you can't talk about the social without the landscape, so we'd expect them to both be inherently connected to each other, and would be reflected through the output of the group.
Great, thank you. One and done, Madam Chair.
News. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. I just wanted to explore the distinction that's made between voluntary and payment offered between the various terms of between the different reference groups, and the decision for a voluntary group in this instance.
In this instance, we had considered that the long-term plan process and deliberations had considered that quite recently in terms of the resourcing of this Heritage Advisory Group, and so we've maintained to honour the decision that was made at that point and just reflect that in the terms of reference. Yep.
Thank you. That's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you. The Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Keegan and Greg, and I think you've done this well with workshops, you know, getting a view from the wider sector on what this could look like. And I think, Greg, your comments, and I'm coming to the question, your comments around it, the timing is right, is very apt. Do you think it's more of a panel rather than a group? And I say that because the other reference groups are derived from the wider community, whereas we're actually looking for some voluntary experts in this space. And yeah, I just wonder if the word panel's not more apt for this group.
Through the chair, yes, I think the name of the group's always going to be a reason itself for a bit of debate. Not just is it a group or a panel, but is it should be referenced as advisory versus reference. I suppose in this instance we sought the advantage in recommending that the group maintain some consistency within the global terms of reference alongside those other reference groups, particularly in terms of its benefits towards accountability, elected members and officers' understanding of how to interact and engage with the group, save a significant amount of time in terms of the details of how the group's formed and recruitment. In terms of whether that name, by calling it a Heritage Reference Group, is reflective enough of, I suppose, the purpose or the service that it would provide, I would agree at an officer level that we would anticipate members of the group having some significant experience with research to make sure that the stories that are being told are taking an appropriate methodology and the accuracy of those outputs, and also a significant contact base from those members to the wider sector. So it does differ slightly in terms of the type of person that might make up other reference groups. I'm happy to take advice or direction on the name. To me, it's going to be named a thing, and then it will manifest itself in terms of its service that it provides.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Keegan and Greg, for presenting that. I'm absolutely delighted, in fact, to move these recommendations to Council, that we approve the terms of reference and purpose for the Palmerston North Heritage Reference Group in Attachment 1, that Council appoints an elected member representative to the reference group to act as the Council liaison as detailed in the terms of reference, and that Council notes members of the Palmerston North Heritage Reference Group will be appointed through an expressions of interest process as detailed in section 6.2 of the terms of reference attachment 1. Seek a seconder for that. I love it when we fight over it, but I will give it to the Mayor this time, because I know this has been close to his heart. So you can second this, Mr. Mayor. And I will open for any comments and go to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, long time coming, and it's great to have other like-minded heritage people around the council table now, and actually it's infiltrated into the staff as well. So it's great that we've finally got there. The city has an enormous amount of heritage to celebrate, which is so diverse, and that came to me when Andrew Coleman, who's the Chief Executive of Heritage New Zealand, visited us when we were trying to stitch together some sort of outcome for the old post office. And I said, look, we haven't got a lot of heritage. And he said, no. He said, you actually are one of the more diverse levels of heritage in this country. So it's both built and natural. And so to Councillor Barrett's question, I think if you look at our natural heritage of the plains of the Manawatu, the Tararua and Ruahine ranges, and of course the Te Apiti Manawatu Gorge. And look, there's a geopark initiative underway at the moment in that space as well. But if you take the whole rich history of whether it's early social history to Māori, especially Rangitane, military, sporting, business, educational, agricultural, it's all here. So we've got to start to, and we've got experts in all of those spaces. So let's pull them together. We've got one in the gallery now too. So acknowledge the work that you do, Joe, around the military side. And look, but there's a whole lot of other Joes as well that do work in other areas. So bring it all together, pull it around. I'd have to say Keegan and Greg have approached this really well in terms of having some workshops with the sector first. So we just haven't, it's been sort of sector-led rather than top-down approach. And that's where we got the terms of reference. And, you know, I can't totally recall, but I think the group was more of a voluntary nature than a paid capacity, because they just love doing this work. And I still think reference groups, they want to serve, and I disagree with paying people, even if it is an honorarium around the space. But look, please, this is something we've got to get into, and as Keegan said, there are some councils backing out of the space, and it's really cool that we are fronting up and actually putting our shoulder to it. So please support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely agree with your words, and thank you for your advocacy in this space through the long-term plan process. It's not often that a council officer comes to the chamber and tells us this is the way to make magic happen, but apparently that's what's going to happen from this. So thank you for that, Keegan. We look forward to seeing your magician status continue. I think just really important to note that reference to the internal and external programmes of work here. This is about how we leverage our community's activity and our community's professional knowledge. I'm comfortable with this being a reference group and in the frame of our wider reference group offering. I think some of those reference groups rely on people's lived experience and some of them rely on people's professional experience. I don't see a difference in value there particularly. So this sits quite nicely in that space for me. It's maybe a frightening thought to think that there is a world of other Joes out there, but I do look forward to the opportunity that this heritage group, reference group provides to tap into that level of experience, knowledge and passion that we have in our community to help us make better decisions in this chamber that enable us to tell the diverse stories of people and place that we are so rich in here in Palmerston North. So seek your support for this and we'll ask you to vote. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Next item on the agenda, draft Otangaki Ashurst Domain Reserve Management Plan. Apologies for mangling that. Adoption for public consultation. Invite Aaron Phillips, Activities Manager Parks, to come and bring his particular brand of magic to the table.
Morena, I was going to say Mr Mayor, Chair and councillors. It's with a little bit of pleasure that we bring this to the table too. I take it as read, but I do have a few bullet points to run over and I'll try and be quick, which is always a challenge for me. A few thank yous. Jason Pilkington is the staff member who did the majority of the work on this project and has done a lot of the engagement so far. So congratulations, Jason, on getting it to this point. We also like to thank the various people who contributed to the pre-draft engagement. There were some consultants, the work with Rangitane and various stakeholders. The pre-engagement is covered for you in Appendix T, so you can see who we've had to talk to so far. The draft plan that we're asking you to allow us to go out to consultation on it does have a few changes from the 1997 plan, and things have changed a little bit in the last nearly 30 years. We're seeking to dual name the reserve and the reserve management plan. Otanaki is the name for the area before European settlement that Rangitane had for the area, so we'd like to acknowledge that. There is a proposal to deal with the natural burial area in the domain. This has been an outstanding issue for council for time, and through some work with Rangitane, with the natural burial advocates and community, we think we've got a spot that will work. We haven't. It's a little bit of chicken and egg. We're proposing that we engage with the community first about this proposed location, and depending on that feedback, then or perhaps in parallel with some of it, get into the detail of feasibility. But at a high level, we believe it's feasible. But we will need to work through a little bit of detail with that. We're proposing that the area that's been on hold, if you like, for grazing below the terrace, associated with the wetland and bush areas, be progressively revegetated in native vegetation. The grazing leases and parks and reserves are really just a holding space for land till you have a purpose with it. With the strategic direction of council around climate change and biodiversity, we think the time is right to start progressively doing that. Just to be a little bit clear on that, we get a lot of community proposals to do planting days, particularly recently from schools. And sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle to find them suitable spots. A lot of the places that we might plant are steep-sided and awkward to get to, don't have any reasonable access to toileting and those sorts of things that people might want. So we think this is a good spot where we could just quietly chip away, largely through volunteer efforts and with a bit of oversight of council officers and modest resources that we already have. And another of the changes is that the grazed area at the top of the terrace be more formally identified for potential community initiatives. The most recent one was the Scouts proposal that you've approved to go up in that area, but we're just signalling that that's the sort of area where future community initiatives would be directed to, and away from some of the other spaces in the domain. assuming you're happy to go out to consultation, we're looking to consult sort of the February-March period. A little bit late to be putting things in front of people this year. Not that we wouldn't entertain anyone approaching us now and talking about the plan, but that's the aim, is to consult in sort of February, March. We'll review the feedback from that consultation and look to bring a final report back to you in the middle of the year next year. Sorry, apologies. We've just picked up this morning a small error that you're possibly one of you is going to bring to our attention. Unfortunately, the natural burial area that is signalled in the document as being shown in figure 11, just a little bit of editing through the process of formatting, we've dropped the circle off, unfortunately, and it is adjacent to the Manawatu Canine Club, which is signalled in figure 11 at number 2 in sort of the northern area. There's a blue space between the orange area. Sorry, if I had something on screen, it would be a little bit easier to describe. A space on the blue area, which is open space at the moment, between the orange area and the purple area next to the railway tracks.
And on the lower terrace.
I could perhaps circulate something that will make that a little bit easier.
I think that would be very helpful, Aaron. Wonderful that your description
but next
is.
to the railway tracks between the Canine Centre and the lower terrace. Yeah. So happy to take questions, unless Kathy had anything to add.
Opening for questions, Councillor Barrett.
Just confirming that editorial around the description you just gave will be corrected before the public sees it?
Yes, it's our understanding there's now a standing permission from the council to make minor edits to documents final before publishing.
Thanks. Also wanted to pick up, you had, I felt indicated quite clearly in the plan around kind of erosion controls, some very explicit intention around character area 2, which is, as I understand it, kind of that grazing area. I didn't see as much explicit there around character area 4, which was the natural bush area. So I suppose my starting point would be, are we aiming for a consistent approach to erosion control in that reserve, or are we treating erosion control differently across different parts of the reserve?
Council is currently working in partnership with Horizons Rangatani and some other stakeholders within our community to look at longer term provision of flood management within the region. That has received some government funding, and that project is underway at the moment. Until we understand what techniques and things come out of that, we can't really define and build that down. But the idea is that we obviously want to stop trying to build ourselves out of climate change and build ourselves out of flooding. And so that will mean that some of the techniques we might use for flood management in the future might be more natural techniques. What the impact of those will be on the domain, we won't know until later, but we've made it really clear as council and Rangatani have as well that area is really important to us. So that's probably all I can really say at this stage. We want to protect the area, but we also don't want to be part of the problem by creating a downstream effect if we do some work around the domain as well.
Thank you. And I guess to that final point around your statement that we want to protect the area, just ensuring that, well, I guess querying, do you feel that that is sufficiently clear in the document, especially as it pertains to Area 4 vis-a-vis Area 2?
The difficulty with this one is, I guess, in the interpretation of what we mean by protection. So if we look at something like Ahemate or what was Penaeri Park, in a flood event, that area gets covered in water. Part of the solutions with a natural thing will be to vegetate areas and provide some of the work that will slow the water down. So at the moment it's quite clear we want to work in partnership to come up with regional solutions to these problems. It may mean at times that there may be some flood inundation in those areas, which naturally occurred in the bush in times past. If you look at the maps, you can see that that's where the river used to be. So at the moment we're, and no doubt this will come through the consultation community and how we might have some more information as we define this down later, but I'm reluctant at the moment to be any explicit about it in the draft plan while we're still working on that regional approach with our stakeholders.
Great, thank you. And one brief final question. It's interesting to me, this is a reserve that is apparently our reserve, but it's also both Palmerston North City and Manawatu District when you actually look at the land. Is there ways to kind of reconcile that so that it's either all our reserve or all somebody else's reserve, or is it kind of acceptable that we have a city reserve that's actually half city and, well, 3/4 city and a tiny bit Manawatu?
Perhaps for the benefit of the councillors that might not understand, the boundary between the Manawatu district and the city runs through the lower terrace area. It's probably the an old river alignment for when the land was originally surveyed. I imagine there is a process for correcting that. It would probably incur some legal fees and some LINS fees to apply for an accretion or a boundary adjustment. To date, it hasn't caused any practical problems for us. Manawatu District quite happy that we manage it and run it.
Does the management plan contemplate any of that?
No, we haven't explicitly said we would deal with that particular issue, but we could if that was.
I was just trying to understand the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, team. I enjoyed reading your report. Any idea what year the camping ground was first installed next to the cemetery in the domain?
No, sorry, Councillor, wasn't prepared for that particular question, but
no problem.
We could find out.
With a camping ground being so unusually close to a cemetery, this report mentioned there's historical unmarked Rangatani burials in the area. Is it known where these are? And has ground radar ever been used in the camping ground to see what's down below?
Jason may correct me, but my understanding is that there are down in the bush area. We don't define them specifically to avoid any issues that might create, but they're not on the top terrace where the current cemetery is. They're down in the spaces close to the river edge.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Apart from pre-European battles in the area, why isn't there any mention of the extensive European military history that the Ashes Domain has as documented on Manawatu heritage?
I can't answer that question. We can go and look at that and add it if we would like. We can look at that as part of bringing back the final report to you to flesh that out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Very interesting. Councillor Dennison, last question, heading to lunch.
Yeah, thank you. Just in regards to the flood protection work, understanding that it's not part of the Manawatu scheme plan, I think it is, with the regional council protects the banks there. Can I understand just what emphasis or promotion of protection are we promoting in the management plan? If any?
We're not at the moment. So the work that's been done with Horizons at the moment is on the Pahongia and the Urua rivers, both of which aren't part of the Upper or Lower Manawatu scheme. But as you're aware, in Cyclone Gabrielle, we had some flooding that did impact on some residents and certainly large areas of farmland. So the level of protection at the moment that we're looking for comes somewhat off where the confluence of the Manawatu and the Pahongia make their way down through the city, and the water has been backing up there. The work that we did last year was the turbulence of that water as it came through and took out one particular part of the bank. So our main concern in that area is the bank in those high flow events, as opposed to high water levels inundating the domain. So what that solution is, it could be a vegetative rather than a man-built structure that could hold that. But that's our main concern we've raised with Horizons, is those high flow events.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That concludes questions. So we'll move the recommendation to committee that we agreed the draft Otaunaki Ashurst Domain Reserve Management Plan, Attachment 1, for public consultation in accordance with Section 41(6) of the Reserves Act 1977, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Open that for any comment. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Reading through the document attachments, I'd have to say I generally agree with the thrust and the direction. However, despite representation earlier this year, there doesn't seem to be any mention of the military heritage and history connected with this domain. Pre-1910, the formation of the NZ Army Ashurst Domain was used periodically by the city's volunteer unit, the Palmerston North Rifles, and it was used during World War I and World War II, plus in between as a military camp and manoeuvre area for the Manawatu Mounted Rifles and the Raheny Mounted Rifles and other local units under training. I couldn't attend any of the stakeholder workshops due to other commitments at the time. However, I arranged John Annabelle to attend on behalf of the Palmerston North Defence Heritage Advisory Group. I note that Joe Hollander's name is listed as a rep for the New Zealand Military Heritage, but according to him, there hasn't been any further contact or reference thus far. I'd like it recorded, please, and acknowledged regarding the military heritage and history that there is at the Ashurst Domain. There are plenty of references and photos of Manawatu heritage, and this report is lacking and needs to be recognised, and the story told for future generations, like people, memories fade. Finally, I add any signage pointing at and in the domain itself would also qualify for the New Zealand Poppy Places treatment, which the city is a proud supporter of. I've recently taken over from Steve Parsons as the Poppy Places lead, and I look forward to adding to fantastic work Steve has accomplished over the years with the 65 plus street signs we currently have in and around our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sure the officers have noted that, and it probably speaks to the very important work that a heritage reference group could do in the future to make sure that we're aware of the stories of a particular place and that there's a process for balancing which of those stories are told and how they're told. But thank you for raising that today. I will invite you all to vote, please. Carried unanimously with 12 votes. The last item on our agenda is the committee work schedule for November 2024. Any comments, Wade? No, no comments from the CE. Any questions on the work schedule? I will move that we receive that work schedule, seconded by Councillor Mee, and invite you to vote, please. Twelve votes for, carried unanimously. Thank you. Nō reira ngā mihi nui kia koutou e ngā mana e ngā reo. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. To finish with our karakia. Kia puta ki te whaio ki te au marama. Whakamoa ki a tīna. Homie, huie, tai kie. Kia ora. Thank you all. 12 o'clock and done. Back for 1 o'clock for risk and audit, please. Thank you.